Hi, all, and welcome to our live for today. I'm really excited to have the creative genius behind my brand and many others with us today, Kendall Adams. And as we go through this chat today, I invite you to put any comments, questions about your branding and things you'd like to learn from Kendall in the comment section, and we will get to those. Kendall, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. I'm really excited to get to be here and chat with you.
Now, could you give me a little bit about your journey, an inch deep, mile wide, about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a graphic designer, and kind of where it all started was I was working as a videographer at a summer camp, and I got to tell the stories and experiences of the kids each week. But so part of that, I was just working on a little staff t-shirt design, and I had PowerPoint pulled up because that's what I had. And my coworker looked at me and he was like, "Dude, you should go into graphic design." And I went, "Oh yeah, where have you been all my life? I totally should go into graphic design." And so from there, went to school for that. And then I started working in museums as an exhibit designer and kind of take that experience with me when I work on branding now, because I look at like what's being trying to being said. How do we say that well? How does this look in a space? How do people interact with it? Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit who I am, where I started, what I do.
And then what made you decide to start a company with that?
It just really kind of developed. Honestly, I didn't set out to go, yes, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but people started coming to me and asking me, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? We'd like this. And, it's just kind of grown from that to being something that I do full time. So I'm loving it though.
Now with KM Inspired, you do website, logo design. What are all the things that you're doing with that?
Yeah. So, like you said, logo design, I have people asking me for branding. I have people saying, hey, we need a new website, or can you refresh our website? Even can you maintain it? Those are kind of the two primary things I do, but it also moves into product development. So right now I'm working on a project with someone who's wants to do a video course. And so putting all that together for them. Or it can even look like event branding and going, what's your event called? How are we going to show that? How do we put together the website so that it reflects everything you're trying to accomplish in that event? And then even to things that get off the computer and that get back into some signage, like where are the restrooms? How do we show people that? But how do we keep it on brand for what we've shown the client all along, the group that's coming in, and even down to the little name tags that everybody wears, really just keeping in with that theme. So yeah, it's a little bit of a variety.
Now, can you walk us through your creative process, particularly when you are tackling like some challenges when the client is looking at what their goals are?
Yeah, so for me, it really comes down to listening, not only to what a client presents, what they need, but to ask questions to kind of get to the heart of what they want while still keeping their goals in constant focus. So, like, for example, a client comes to me and they say, hey, I need a logo or I need a website. But really, that's just the surface. Like, think about it. What they're really wanting is they're kind of wanting something that not only speaks about their business, but also goes into there's so much passion of why did you get into this business? They have a story. They're trying to connect to their audience, and they also want something that works for them, that draws people to them, that clearly communicates all that. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a little baby logo or on a website. But honestly, that's what makes it really fun for me.
How many times do people try to go ask you for like 40 to 50 logos, and what should people actually expect when they're going through the logo making journey, and what is a fair expectation of graphic designers with that?
It really doesn't really matter, because as the graphic designer, I get to kind of coach them through that process. And again, it's a lot of listening to what they want and what they need. And so So I had one woman that came to me and she was working on branding her Pilates studio for plus size people. And it just kind of developed as we had conversation and we worked through the logo. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it's if the client's just ready to have a process, if they're ready to engage with a little bit deeper of an exploration of like, what am I really trying to accomplish? What's my business really about? And how do we show that to people so that in kind of a quick glimpse, they can see what I'm about? Yeah, it's a little bit deeper of a process than they may be ready to have thought that it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the world ever changing right now and AI coming to the forefront, how do you see that impacting the design world?
Yeah, so, we've even had some conversations about this, and it definitely impacts the design world, but I see it as impacting it for good. I get to use AI as a tool. And so, like, quick example, I had someone that's wanting to use an image that is vertical, but we're using it on a website and they needed it to be in a horizontal space. They wanted it to be in that header and to make it that hero. And so going into Photoshop and using some of their AI capabilities, and we could do that. We could take it from that vertical to that horizontal. And now, of course, it still needed a human behind it, right? So AI is not something to be afraid of. It's something to leverage. Because, without me being able to do that, they would have had 3 arms happening. But we did it. They were really happy, and it served everybody really well.
That's awesome. Now, how do you ensure the client's needs are met, but also you're thinking about like enhancing their brand visibility and market presence?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do, Rachel, is I just really get to know the client. I ask them questions. We work into narrowing their focus. And then inviting feedback. So I think one of the hardest projects that I got to work on was for a nonprofit. And as I there were about 8 people in the Zoom room with me, and they had so much passion behind what they did, which is really great. But also when you get that many people and that much heart behind it, I had to work really to kind of narrow in about what are we really trying to say and what does this logo really need to look like. So that was part of it. But then also I work to invite feedback. And frankly, that's a thing that people are kind of afraid to push back, and they're afraid to maybe hurt my feelings by saying, I don't like that one. But I need that. That informs me. And so usually what I do is I just kind of make a joke about it. And I say, listen, if it doesn't feel comfortable telling me you don't like something, how about you just tack on to the end like, oh, but you're really pretty. And everybody just usually laughs and then we move on. But that does give them that comfortability to say, this one's not doing it for me. Can we maybe take that one color from here, but then can we move? I like sort of where we're heading with this. Because it is a journey, and it does take, it's not just a one and done. It takes a couple of those different designs as we're working to go, yeah, this is really saying what we want it to say.
I think it's a little amusing because you and I have worked on a couple of projects together, and when you're saying people are hesitant of giving feedback, I think that that's something you and I have worked through because I'm maybe too blunt in giving feedback.
But I love it, Rachel. That's so good.
But it's been great because you and I can kind of cut to the chase, and it actually gets the process flowing a little bit faster, I find, when people are upfront about what they're really liking about it and what they're not. And you can still do that in a kind of tactful way. But I think you get to the end result faster.
Yeah. And what I realized too, like oftentimes this is someone's first time working with a graphic designer, working with this process, but it's not my first time, right? So I'm used to hearing people say, no. And part of that's the exploration of kind of pushing outside of the box and going like, what if we explore here? What if we explore here? Bringing some curiosity and some creativity into it. So I need them to know and kind of confront that elephant in the room that I've heard it all before. It's not going to hurt me.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's that idea of minimal viable product. So you and I have worked together recently because I'm moving into the consulting, like fractional coaching space. And when we first started, I said, we just need to throw something, like we need to throw a logo up, we need to throw the website up. And now that I've gotten into the space a little bit more, we're working through a brand refresh now that I have more information. And so what advice would you give to a business like me that's going through that, like, phase of re-exploring a brand refresh or their brand identity?
Yeah, Rachel, I would say let's just lean into it, right? And sometimes, I mean, we've talked about like it's a little uncomfortable. You felt like we were going one way, and then is it okay to move another way? And I think, you and I have in that process just gone, yeah, absolutely, because this way isn't really serving us well. It's not serving what you're trying to say for your customers and your clients. And so let's just move forward and talk through, what colors are actually going to say, as we're talking through, you're the bold bee. What's bold? What's going to work with that? Are we using bold colors? Are we using, we talked through like using a very sturdy font, but then we realized, well, is that going to go too masculine? So really trying to dial in what's going to say the most of what you want.
Mm-hmm. And not being afraid to like do that pivot and something that is more fitting now that I have a little bit more experience of what I want, what target audience I want, what clients I want to work with, and who I am presenting, what packages I'm presenting. I think that I'm glad that we didn't put in a lot of time and effort when we first started a couple months ago, because it allowed me the space to then figure out how we shift it in the long run.
Rachel, you're the perfect example of someone who, as we've grown over time and as we've worked together, you've realized like, oh, this logo is kind of important. I need to move beyond what I had originally because a logo says things about me. It says things about my business, and it's saying things right now that I'm not. And so how do we move into something that I actually am? So I really like that.
Now, out of curiosity, what type of industries are you working with normally? Is it mainly startups? Is it nonprofits? I've heard you say a little bit of everybody.
Kind of is. It is a little bit of everybody. It often is startups and nonprofits, which surprisingly has some good overlap as far as having a tighter budget, starting out a little smaller. But, I also have clients that have over 70,000 followers, and we're working to kind of just narrow in and refine some things with their branding or incorporate new projects that they're starting. So yeah, it's a lot of things, but I love learning as I go through and engage in each one.
And when somebody's thinking about getting a website put together, what are the important things on the back end to know about? So I know you and I have used a program called Entreport in the past, and that has like sales funnels, it has email marketing, it has, a CRM. So what are the things that should be important when people are evaluating what works for their specific business, whether it be something like me, who's more of a service business, or somebody who's, selling a product?
Yeah, I think it so often comes down to budget, honestly. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that is generally where people draw the line. But, even in that, there's so many good products out there. And so a lot of it is going, well, okay, your business is here right now. Your budget's here right now. Is there something that has a plan that works with where we are now, but then gives ability to grow? So, as you get more clients, as this really starts putting your business and your brand out there, oh, we can take it from there. We've got just a basic CRM happening, but now we can move into something that we can leverage things better for where we go.
Now, looking back, can you share a moment or a project that stands out particularly that excited you, rewarded you in your design career?
Yeah, so I think so. The thing about that is, if I'm being honest, I get a design high after every one that I work on. Mm-hmm. So, I mentioned doing some event branding, and as I was moving through, that was like a half a year project as we started off, and then actually it took longer than that, but doing some concepts, moving into it, and then really, producing designs that they used for their social media, and then moving into the more tangible, like I said, the signs that were where's the bathroom? And that one was like, as I got closer to that event week, oh, I'm going to miss doing this. I'm going to have to say goodbye to that one. So yeah, but then I would say too, there was one that I got to do that was international, and they were working with people that had gotten out of sexual exploitation. And so that was a project that was also something near and dear to my heart. But we talked about like, what are colors that speak to that nationality? What are ways that we can use? The word was even something from, different language than mine, and even a different script than mine. But how can we use that into part of the logo and really speak to the people and speak to the hope and the freedom that they're working with in their recovery? So that one stands out.
Yeah. Now, as we kind of wrap up, can you share one tip from your industry that every small business owner should know?
Yeah, so I would say, we've kind of talked about this, but branding really does say a lot about you, whether you're aware of it or not. And you want someone alongside of you that knows those things and that can help you share those things. Like I said, you're putting in your passion, you're considering your clients, you're putting in trying to say, this is what my business is, and you're doing all of that in a brand, in a logo, in a website. So I would say that. And then I would also say, if you're starting out, be honest with yourself about your budget, but be ready to spend something, because you'll have so many costs for so many things. And a lot of those costs don't go away, right, Rachel? Like a lot of them are monthly things, or there's something that you spent on, maybe it's a software or computer or whatever it is, and that's going to break. You're going to need to replace it. But if you put the time and invest the money in it up front, your brand is something that won't need to go away. It's something that'll work for you. It's something that'll last. And so, yeah, if you do it right, if you spend money up front, this could be a one and done and something that exists for a really long time.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kendall, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else for Kendall that they'd like to ask about branding or graphic design, I would invite them to put them in the chat, and then Kendall or I will get back to you. But I really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining. And thank you, Rachel. This has been really fun.
Have a lovely rest of your day, guys.